Rain hit the windows of the Kang mansion. Inside, a 6-year-old girl looked up at a teenage girl in silk clothes. The teenage girl smiled at everyone in the room. Servants bowed. Guards stood tall. Everyone believed she was Kang Ha-yoon, the lost daughter of Seoul's most powerful family. Everyone except one small child. The little girl tugged the older girl's sleeve. She waited until no one else was listening. Then she whispered 4 words that would break an empire. "You're not the real daughter." The teenage girl froze. Her smile did not move, but her eyes changed. For 1 second, fear replaced confidence. Nobody else heard it. Nobody else saw her hand shake. But that whisper was the beginning of the end. 10 years of secrets were about to come apart. And it started with a child named Freedom. Before we continue, have you ever felt someone was lying, even before you had proof? That feeling in your gut that something was wrong, long before anyone else noticed? Comment, "Trust your gut," below if you've ever felt that. Now, let's go back to where this story truly began. Years earlier, the name Kang meant power. Kang Min-jae ruled the shadows of Seoul. He controlled ports, businesses, and secrets that powerful men wanted buried. People feared him. Rivals avoided his name. But behind the tall gates of his mansion, Min-jae was not a monster. He was a father. His daughter, Ha-yoon, was 6 years old. She had bright eyes and a loud laugh that echoed through the halls. She did not know her father commanded an empire. To her, he was just Appa, the man who carried her on his shoulders and let her win every board game. Min-jae believed in 3 things above all else: loyalty, blood, and love. Loyalty kept his empire strong. Blood meant family came first, always. And love, real love, was the one thing his money could not buy, and the one thing he refused to lose. His wife, Mrs. Kang, filled the mansion with warmth. She sang lullabies every night. She planted flowers in the garden with Ha-yoon's small hands helping her dig. And then there was Madame Kang, Min-jae's mother. The elders called her sharp-eyed. Nothing passed her without notice. She had survived hard years before the empire existed, and that history made her cautious. She trusted actions more than words. Together, this family built a life that looked, from the outside, untouchable. Guards patrolled the gates day and night. Cameras watched every corner. Nothing could reach little Ha-yoon inside these walls. Or so they believed. Because even the strongest empire has one weakness: the people they love the most are also the easiest to lose. And on one rainy night, that weakness would be tested. The night it happened, thunder covered every warning sound. Men dressed as security guards walked through the front gate. Their uniforms looked real. Their badges looked real. Nobody questioned them until it was too late. They moved fast. 2 real guards were knocked unconscious. A third was locked inside a storage room. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, the men were already inside Ha-yoon's bedroom. She was asleep, holding her favorite teddy bear. When Mrs. Kang ran into the room minutes later, the bed was empty. Only the teddy bear remained, dropped on the floor. Ha-yoon was gone. Min-jae launched the largest search his empire had ever attempted. He spent billions. He sent men to Tokyo, Paris, New York, and cities with no name in the news. He questioned rivals. He questioned allies. He turned over every stone in the underground world he ruled. Nothing. No calls. No ransom notes. No trace. Weeks became months. Months became years. Mrs. Kang blamed herself every single day. She replayed that night over and over, wondering what she could have done differently. Min-jae grew quieter, harder, colder. The empire still feared him, but something inside him had gone silent, like a light switched off. Only Madame Kang refused to let go. While others slowly accepted the unthinkable, she kept a private file locked in her room. She hired her own investigators, separate from her son's men. She followed leads nobody else believed in. "A mother's heart may give up," she once said quietly, "but a grandmother's heart never does." 10 years passed this way, the mansion beautiful on the outside, hollow on the inside. Until one afternoon, the front gates opened for a girl carrying an old silver bracelet. The girl at the gate called herself Seojia. She stood in old clothes, holding a silver bracelet with the Kang family crest engraved on it. Her hands trembled as she said the words the family had waited 10 years to hear. "I am Ha-yoon." The staff gasped. Guards froze. Someone ran to call Min-jae. DNA testing was impossible. The kidnappers had burned every medical record years ago. But Jia knew things only a real daughter should know. She described hidden hallways from childhood. She remembered the family's old dog by name. She hummed a lullaby that only Mrs. Kang had ever sung to Ha-yoon. Mrs. Kang broke into tears and pulled her into a hug. Min-jae, the man feared across Seoul, wept in front of his own staff for the first time in 10 years. Only Madame Kang stayed silent. She watched from the doorway, her face unreadable, as the family welcomed this girl home. In the weeks that followed, Jia became the perfect daughter. She greeted every servant by name. She cooked breakfast every morning. She memorized birthdays. She volunteered at the family's charities and cried happy tears every time she called Min-jae father. The media loved her. The public loved her. Even the guards, once distant and formal, began smiling when she passed. She seemed flawless. Almost too flawless. Late at night, when she believed no one was watching, Jia searched through old family safes and private records. Madame Kang saw this too. And still, she said nothing. Do you think Jia is hiding something? Vote yes or no in the comments. Let's see who's right by the end. One afternoon, Jia visited one of the family's orphanages for a charity event, smiling for cameras and shaking small hands. That's where she met a 6-year-old girl with messy hair and a bright, fearless smile. "What's your name?" Jia asked, kneeling down. "My name is Freedom," the girl said proudly. Staff explained the girl had been given that name years ago, after she was rescued as a toddler from people who had taken her from her family. Jia smiled politely and turned to leave. Then Freedom spoke again, quieter this time. "You're not the real daughter." Jia stopped walking. Her smile disappeared. "What did you say?" Freedom pointed at the silver bracelet on Jia's wrist. "That belongs to my big sister." The room suddenly felt very cold. Freedom explained, in the simple way a child explains things, that she once knew an older girl who wore that same bracelet every single day. That girl had protected her. That girl had told her, before they were separated, to remember one thing. "If anyone asks who I am, tell the Kang family I'm still alive." Freedom had never forgotten those words. Jia's face turned pale. She made a quick excuse and rushed out of the orphanage, leaving the staff confused behind her. That night, back in her private room at the mansion, Jia locked her door and picked up her phone. She dialed a number she had not called in months. "We have a problem," she whispered. She did not know that Madame Kang, quietly suspicious for weeks, had placed a small recorder in that very room. Every word was captured. The truth was closing in, and Jia had no idea it was already too late. 3 days later, the front gates of the mansion opened again. This time, a young woman walked in alone. Her clothes were simple. Her face carried faint scars. She carried no bags, no jewelry, no proof of wealth. Only one thing. An old, worn teddy bear. The same teddy bear left behind on the night of the kidnapping, 10 years ago. Guards moved to stop her, unsure who she was. She didn't argue. She didn't rush. She simply stood there, calm, as if she had been preparing for this moment for years. Then Freedom, who had been brought to the mansion for safety after the orphanage incident, stepped out from behind Madame Kang. The little girl's eyes went wide. She dropped the toy in her hands and ran. "Big sister." The young woman fell to her knees and caught Freedom in her arms, holding her tightly, tears falling freely for the first time in years. The guards lowered their weapons. The servants stopped moving. Even the wind seemed to pause. Word spread through the mansion in seconds. Doors opened. Footsteps rushed down hallways. Min-jae appeared first, frozen in the doorway. Then Mrs. Kang, hand pressed to her mouth. Then Jia, pale and silent, standing far back from the crowd. Madame Kang was the only one who did not look surprised. She simply nodded, as though 10 years of quiet searching had finally been answered. The young woman looked up, eyes meeting Minjae's for the first time in a decade. Hello, Appa. The entire mansion fell into complete, breathless silence. Inside the main hall, the family gathered close, afraid to look away in case she vanished. Her name, she confirmed, was truly Kang Ha-yoon. She spoke slowly, choosing her words with care. After the kidnapping, she had been taken far from Seoul and separated from everything she knew. For years, she lived among other children who had also been taken from their families. She did not go into painful detail. She didn't need to. Everyone in the room understood enough from her eyes and her scars. What she wanted them to know is this: she had survived. And she had not survived alone. Whenever she could, she looked after the younger children around her. She gave them courage when they had none left. Freedom had been one of them, a toddler too young to understand what was happening, but old enough to remember kindness. Eventually, Ha-yoon found a way to alert authorities. Her information helped investigators dismantle the network that had taken her, freeing many children who had been trapped for years. But her identity had to remain hidden during the investigation. Revealing herself too soon could have endangered the rescue and the people helping her. Only when the operation was fully complete could she finally come home. I wanted to come back so many times, she said quietly. But I couldn't put any of you or the other children at risk. Mrs. Kang broke into sobs, pulling her daughter close. Minjae, the man all of Seoul feared, could not speak at all. Then, slowly, every eye in the room turned toward Jia. Jia stood alone in the center of the room, every eye fixed on her. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Madame Kang stepped forward and set her phone on the table. She pressed play. Jia's own voice filled the silence. We have a problem. The room turned cold. Mrs. Kang's hand flew to her mouth. Minjae's jaw tightened. Jia's legs gave out. She sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. She confessed everything. She was not Ha-yoon. She never had been. She had been raised by one of the men connected to the kidnapping, a man who gave her the bracelet and trained her for years, teaching her the hallways, the lullaby, the dog's name, preparing her to walk through these gates and claim a stolen life. I knew it was wrong, she said, voice breaking. But the moment I arrived here, people smiled at me. They hugged me. Nobody had ever treated me like that before. I didn't want to let it go. She looked up at Ha-yoon, shame written across her face. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just needed you to know the truth. Ha-yoon studied her for a long moment. She said nothing yet. The weight of 10 stolen years and one girl's desperate lie hung in the air between them. Minjae's fists clenched. Mrs. Kang wept quietly. The staff stood frozen, unsure what would happen next. She lied to an entire family for months. Would you forgive her? Comment yes or no, I want to know what you'd do. Madame Kang finally spoke, her voice steady and calm. Ha-yoon, she said, you are my granddaughter by blood. Then she turned to Jia. You are not. And what you did was wrong. You took something that was never yours to take, and you must accept the consequences of that. Jia lowered her head, accepting the words without argument. But, Madame Kang continued, you were also a child raised by liars. You were shaped by adults who stole your childhood the same way they stole Ha-yoon's. That does not erase what you did. But it means you deserve a chance to build something honest. She arranged for Jia to live in a home funded by the Kang Foundation, where she could finish school, receive proper support, and slowly build a life that belonged to her, not one borrowed from someone else. Ha-yoon walked over and knelt beside her. You don't have to steal my life to have a future, she said gently. Go make your own. Freedom, found to have no surviving family, was officially adopted into the Kang household soon after. For the first time in her young life, she had a real home, a real family, and a big sister who would never leave her again. The Kang family also turned part of their fortune into a foundation dedicated to finding missing children and supporting survivors, a tribute to everything Ha-yoon had endured and everyone she had protected along the way. This story leaves behind a simple truth. Family is not only about blood. It's about who shows up, who protects you, and who tells you the truth even when a lie would be easier. Madame Kang never gave up, not because she was certain, but because she loved without needing proof. Jia was shaped by people who used her for their own gain. That explains her choices. It does not excuse them. Even people who were once deceived owe honesty to those they deceive in return. And Ha-yoon, who lost everything, still chose to protect others before herself. Sometimes the truth arrives late. But when it finally comes, it sets everyone free. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you had been in that mansion, who would you have trusted first, the polite girl who came home first, or the little girl who whispered the truth? Let me know in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves a good twist. More stories like this are coming very soon. See you in the next one.